أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين سيدنا ومولانا أبي القاسم محمد اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين المظلومين الغر الميامين ولعنة الدائمة الباقية على أعدائهم أجمعين من يوم عداوتهم إلى يوم الدين أما بعد فقد قال الله سبحانه وتعالى في كتابه المبين وإن عليكم لحافظين صدق الله العلي العظيم صلوات على محمد وآل محمد اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. Inshallah, we'll start our lecture with the supplications to Allah Almighty and by raising our hands and giving the wasila of Muhammad wa ali Muhammad alayhi salam. Allahumma bihaqqa Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Allahumma bihaqqa Fatimata wa biha wa ba'aliha wa baniha alayhi salam. O Allah, we all have gathered here with supplications that we have for this world and the hereafter. Ya Allah, we request you to fulfill all of those hajat. Ya Allah, tomorrow is the day of Qaim of our Sahib al-Asr wa Zaman, and likewise tonight is the night of Friday. We remember our Imam. Ya Allah, hasten the dhuhur of Sahib al-Zaman. Make us among his companions, among his supporters. And Ya Allah, we also remember our marhumin. O Allah, we request you to forgive their sins and to elevate their status. And Ya Allah, to give them the proximity, especially the names that were mentioned, the people that just recently passed away and their names were being displayed. We remember them too, Ya Allah, to give them the proximity of Muhammad wa ali Muhammad alayhi salam. Salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Indeed, it's an honor to be in midst of you all and to actually revisit my actual home mosque, right? It's always really close to my heart, and nothing, can supersede the feelings that we have, the spiritual feeling, and this very close connection that we have, and all of you, and specifically I have, with this beautiful mosque. And with this, inshallah, we would like to remind ourselves, tonight is the night of Friday. And as we all have this belief, or actually an understanding that we have, that, the marhumeens of our families, they do visit the homes, right? They are visiting the homes, they're witnessing what is happening in the family, they're looking what their loved ones are going through. Sometimes they're happy when they see their families, they're going through good times. Sometimes they feel sad too when they look at their families, they're going through the difficult time, right? Likewise, they are in need of our prayers, they are in need of our supplications, they are in need of things that we do in the actions of righteousness, in good actions that we do. And we request Allah Almighty that whatever good actions that we do, Ya Allah, make our marhumin as part of the thawab too. Because at the end of the day, we need to understand each and every day that is passing. And inshallah, I would like to connect myself to the topic that I would want to speak tonight. But before we do so, this beautiful riwayah that we have, it says, and it is from Imam Sadiq alayhi salatu wassalam, Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. ما من يوم يمر على ابن آدم, not a day passes over the son of Adam, over a human being, إلا قال ذلك اليوم له, but that day will make an announcement, that day will make a proclamation, or they would have the conversation with that person. And what would it say? أنا يوم جديد, I'm a new day, I'm a new dawn, I am a beginning of a new hope, I'm a new day. فقل في خيرا أو أعمل فيها صالحا, that you do good actions in it, you do actions of piety, you do virtuous actions in it, you do righteous actions in it, you say the things that are neat, you say the things that are good, you say the things that are, that matches the status that Allah has given to you. You're a believer, say things that are good. وَأُشْهِدُ بِذَلِكَ لَكَ يَوْمَ الْقِيَامَةِ, and I am going to be your witness on the day of judgment. and I'm going to be your witness, I'm going to be your testimony when you will be coming for your hisab on the day of judgment. Every day that is passing by, every hour that is passing by, every second that is passing by, it's giving us a new message, right? And that is that, whatever you have done in the past, you have done in the past. But it is very important to look towards your present. It is very important to look towards your future. And make sure that for the present and the future, your past should not be a dictation for you that you become an overconfident person. Your past should not be a dictation for you that you become a very pessimistic person. Sometimes, we do have the worries of the past. And past determines what we are in present and what we are going to be in future. But this beautiful announcement tells us that for every present and future, you have to make up your mind and you have to be more spiritual. You were spiritual, but that does not guarantee you that you will be spiritual in present and future. You were not so spiritual in the past, but it is not a guarantee that you will be on the same path for the present and the future. You should always make this niyat, this intention that you have to have the spiritual day throughout the days that you have to pass through. Every day, morning you start up your day. Bismillah, Assalamu alaikum ya Mawlana ya Sahib al-Zaman, Assalamu alaikum ya Ahl al-Bayt al-Nubuwa. Your salam and salutations to your beautiful Imam. Your salam and salutations to the family of the Prophet. And the next announcement, the announcement does not have to be very out loud. It can be in your heart, that's it. That today is a new dawn. Today is a new fajr. Today is a new day that I have to go through. And inshallah, I make this intention that I will use it to the maximum of the ability to have that closeness, to have that qurbah, and to have that proximity to Allah Almighty. And with this, as I said, that Thursday is a night, or Friday is a day, generally, you will have, Thursday is a day too when your amals are presented in front of your Imam. Your amals are presented. Of course, he's witnessing whatever you're doing, but the amals are specifically presented for the hisab on Thursday, not only to the Imam of your time, but also to the Messenger of Allah Almighty. So Thursday is a very important day, right? Thursday and Friday. That's why we make sure that Thursday and Friday, between these nights, we are worshipping Allah Almighty. Between Thursday and Friday, we are doing good amal. Between Thursday and Friday, we are in the majlis of Ahlul Bayt. Between Thursday and Friday, we are crying upon the tragedy. We're lamenting upon the tragedy of Ahlul Bayt, even if it means we cry only for a minute or two. Thursday and Friday, the night between is a demonstration, the love that we have for the family of the Prophet. Assalamu alayka ya Aba Abdullah. Assalamu alayka ya Abul Fadl al-Abbas. Assalamu alaykum. Then you say to the shuhada of the Karbala, Ya Ansara Dinillah, Sara Rasulillah, one after each and Assalamu alayka ya Ali ibn. Each and every personality that you're saying your salams and salutation, it's basically an announcement that between Thursday to Friday, I'll make sure that my connection to these mediators are very strong. My connection to these intercessors that we have is very strong. And with this, inshallah, that's the difference, the theological difference that we have with the disbelievers. Not all the disbelievers, but they're mostly, out of the disbelievers that you have, some of them, they believe on the day of judgment. Some of them, they don't believe in the day of judgment, right? The people that believe in the day of judgment, they are generally the followers of the Abrahamic faith, right? Be it the Christians, be it the Jews, be it the Muslims, right? But majority of the non-Muslim, they don't believe in a day of judgment. They believe, like our souls are going to be reincarnated again. It's going to change its form. Sometimes it's going to be a human. Sometimes it's going to be an animal. Sometimes it's going to be any other creation of Allah Almighty. So that's the perpetual cycle that the personality is in, right? Unless or until it reaches the mukti, unless or until it reaches the point of satisfaction and the tranquility. That's the belief that they have. And that's what's the belief. That's why the 30th para, or majority of the Quran that when you come across, it talks about the day of judgment. Now the day of judgment in itself, we don't talk a lot about it from our manabir. But generally it's talked about, but in general, we don't talk about it on our manabir that much, on our pulpits that much. But it's a topic that comes across in Quran so many times, right? So many times. A reminder upon regarding Ma'ad. Reminder about the day of judgment. Because why was it so? Because the infidels and the disbelievers, even though they believed in Allah Almighty, but they also used to believe in the demigods. But apart from the corruption that they have in their creed and their aqidah, they did not used to believe on the day of judgment. And this is what Quran is mentioning, what they used to believe. In here, illa hayatuna dunya, namutu wa nahya, wa ma nahnu bimab'uthin. That these disbelievers would say that this life is nothing but a worldly life. We're going to die here, we're going to live here, and we will not be resurrected, we will not be raised, we will not be put back into the lives on the day of judgment. And another ayah, وَقَالُوا مَا هِيَ إِلَّا حَيَاتُنَا الدُّنْيَا مَا هِيَ إِلَّا حَيَاتُنَا الدُّنْيَا, that this life is nothing but the worldly life that we're coming across. نَمُوتُ وَنَحْيَا, we're going to die here, we're going to live here. وَمَا يُهْلِكُنَا إِلَّا الدَّهْرِ, and nothing is going to destroy us, nothing is going to damage us, nothing is going to desecrate us, but only and only the time. And Allah mentions their saying, and then Allah replies to them, وَمَا لَهُم مِّن ذَلِكَ مِنْ عِلْمٍ, and they do not have any knowledge of what they are saying. In whom إِلَّا يَظُنُّونَ, they're only speculating, they're only guessing when it comes to the day of judgment. So one of the primary beliefs that the disbelievers had during the time of the Prophet, or the polytheists of the Mecca they had, was they used to deny the day of judgment. That's why there's so much mentioning of the day of judgment, and that differentiates between a believer and a disbeliever. Disbeliever, or the infidels, the majority of them, they believe that, the life that we have is the only life that we have to spend, right? There would not be another life after the death. There would not be another life that we would have to come across on the day of judgment. Unlike the believer, they believe that the life is with a purpose, and the life just does not end when we pass away from this dunya. It's basically an intiqal that we have. You see how beautiful wording that we have used. Sometimes we use the word yaqeen for the maut. Yaqeen means a certain thing that is eventually going to come, and there is no doubt that eventually it's going to come. Hatta ataka al-yaqeen. That's why majority of the time when you're reciting the supplications, when you're reciting the ziyarah of different imams, you recite hatta ataka al-yaqeen. Mawla, you were doing this, you were doing that, you were doing this, you were doing that, until you embrace martyrdom, right? Until that reaches you, until the yaqeen reaches you. You call it yaqeen too. But in our Urdu or Farsi, sometimes we also use the word intiqal. Now intiqal is used in fiqh too, but also in our Urdu language too. Intiqal generally means that you are transferred from one place to another. The journey was going through, instead of going this way, you have to take a separate way. But the journey is a demonstration that Allah has given you a different life. You have a life, but it's a different life right now. It's a barzakhi life that you have to go through. And after the barzakhi life, it's going to be the life on the day of judgment. Whether you will be recompensated in a good terms or in a very bad terms, depends on the actions and the creed that you have. But ultimately you are going to have a life, and that's why we don't take this life just as a mere entertainment. We don't take this life as mere pleasure or fun. We don't take this life as just a source of amusement that we're going through. And inshallah, that's going to be our end. الَّذِينَ اتَّخَذُوا دِينَهُمْ لَهْوًا وَلَعِبًا وَغَرَّتْهُمُ الْحَيَاةُ الدُّنْيَا فَالْيَوْمَ نَنْسَاهُمْ كَمَا نَسَوْا لِقَاءَ يَوْمِهِمْ هَذَا. That Allah is describing about the disbelievers, that these are the people that have taken their religion as distraction. These are the people that have taken their religion as an amusement, as an entertainment. And these are the people that the worldly life have deceived them completely. The worldly life has misled them in believing that yahin par zindagi, and that's nothing to come in future. And then Allah says, فَالْيَوْمَ نَنْسَاهُمْ, today we're not going to look towards them with the nazar of mercy, with the vision of mercy. The way they forgot the meeting that is going to take place as of today. وَمَا كَانُوا لِآيَاتِنَا, and whatever they used to deny of the signs and the ayahs that we have given in. Now for Allah, I would not use the translation. Today I will forget the way they have forgotten. Now for Allah, there is nothing that He can forget. Allah is not oblivious of anything, right? Allah is all knowledgeable. Allah is Sami'un Basir, Allah is Alim, Allah is Qadir. So we understand. So sometimes the translation has to be a little bit changed. If you're doing the literal translation, there is no problem. But when you're coming to the translation, when you're trying to explain something, so today we're not going to look towards them with the nazar of mercy. Yeah, the Rahmaniyat was there for them in this dunya. We used to provide them the livelihood. We used to provide them with the provision. That was all, that was good. But that was only for what? For this dunya. But when it comes to the akhirah, it's going to be only determined of what your aqidah was regarding us in this dunya. What you used to practice in this dunya. What you used to do in this dunya. That is going to determine your hereafter. So if you go through the chronological means, right? This dunya is not created just for the fun purpose, right? There is another life. There is another hayat that we have after we will pass away from this dunya. That connects me to another point. Now I was talking about the entertainment, right? Entertainment itself, entertainment is not bad. Mashallah, the basketball court is there. You go, you enjoy with your family, and that a reminder for me. What kind of entertainment? Allah is mentioning lahwan wa la'ib, right? That's a common terminology that Allah has used so many times in Quran. But let's come to the hadith again from Sadiq al Muhammad alayhi salam. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Imam Sadiq alayhi salatu wasalam says in Malla Yahzur al-Faqih, another book too, Sheikh Saduq quotes it, في حكمة آل داود أن على العاقل لا يكون ضاعنا إلا في ثلاث. Within the wisdom, within the intelligence of the progeny of the offspring of Prophet Dawood alayhi salatu wasalam. Now specifically Dawood alayhi salatu wasalam is mentioned because the imama was from the progeny, the nabuwa was from the progeny of Dawood alayhi salatu wasalam. Who was Sulaiman? Sulaiman was the son of Dawood alayhi salatu wasalam. Fi hikmati ali Dawood, within the family of Dawood alayhi salatu wasalam, within the wisdom that they have given, anna ala al-akili, that for a person who is logical, for a person who is rational, for a sane person, it does not befit them but to only travel or to only spend time or to only do things within the boundaries of these three significant things that are being mentioned. Within these three boundaries, right? Whatever you do in your life, that should be within the boundaries of these three things, right? Now, it does not literally mean that every time it has to be in its literal sense. Our intentions are going to determine these boundaries, right? Now, what are these three boundaries that Allah has given you? Whatever action you do. I came here to masjid. I'm going to go to my job tomorrow. You're going, some of you will go to the college. Some of you will go to university. Some of you will do this, will do that. But it should be within the boundaries of these three things. So, and what are those three boundaries that Allah has mentioned? And the Messenger of Allah and the Imams of Ahlul Bayt have determined. What are those three boundaries, right? في لذة غير حرام. The first thing is what? To spend your time in those amusement, in those fun activities, in those things that are permissible. Now when Allah is using الَّذِينَ اتَّخَذُوا دِينَهُمْ لَهْوًا وَلَعِبًا, it means the negative sort of entertainment that people would do. But positive entertainment that is permissible, that is legitimized, that is halal, there is no problem in it, right? But again, within the boundaries, right? It should not be like 24 hours, I'm just going through this soccer match, that soccer match, I'm just going through and playing through my PlayStations, right? This should always be, that's why they call it recreational activities, right? Recreational activities literally means what? There is a bigger purpose that you're doing it, but sometimes you need the pause, sometimes you need the break. And that's why you spend your time in recreational activities, right? That should always be recreational. It should not be only as a purpose, right? So one thing, that you spend your time in those ladhat, on those entertainment that Allah has made permissible. وَمَرَمَّةٍ لِمْمَعَاشٍ. And the second activity is what? Boosting and enhancing and bolstering what? Your economy, your livelihood, your provision. Next thing is what? You spend your time looking after your livelihood. Spend your time looking after the economics. You spend your time after your job, after the business, after the halal income that you would earn. And the third thing Allah mentions, or the hujjah of Allah mentions is what? وَتَزَوُّدٍ لَمَعَادٍ. And the third activity that you should spend within these the parameters, the third thing out of the three is what? That you are gearing up yourself, you are readying yourself, and you are preparing yourself for the day of judgment. And a very important thing, preparing yourself for the day of judgment. You know, we all, mashallah, are working. Some of us are working, and some that are not working. We request Allah Almighty to, inshallah, increase their provision and give them the opportunity, right? But very important, my dear brother and sister, you guys are working. You guys make sure that you guys take out some time for the entertainment too, right? Be it whatever things that you're doing, unless or until it is permissible. But the third thing is what? تَزَوُّدٍ لَمَعَادٍ. How much have we actually prepared for the day of judgment? How much we have actually enhanced ourselves and geared up ourselves for the day of resurrection, for the day that we would have to go and meet Allah Almighty. There are so many ways, and that is why you come during the Thursday nights. That is why you come during the Fridays. That is why you come on Saturdays, Sundays, the Wiladati, the Shahadati, the Mubarak Badi, and everything, all these programs that you're coming in. You come in to prepare yourself for the ultimate day of judgment, right? But one thing that I would want to remind myself, there are so many motivations that you have to prepare yourself for that ultimate day. But inshallah, one topic that I would want to remind myself is one of the best ways that you would be able to prepare yourself for that day of judgment is when you would be able to self-regulate yourself. When you would be able to self-monitor yourself. when you would be able to self-restrain yourself, if you have that capability, if you have that ability, if you have that enthusiasm, that niyat within us, that I can control myself, that is going to be the ultimate victory, because deen is equal to control. The maximum control you have, the maximum you are the one that is practicing the deen. So how we are able to control ourselves? Now, in public, it's very easy to control myself, isn't it? You all are watching me, you all are monitoring me. The last thing I would want to do is any haram thing, right? If I would do any haram thing, it's going to be a public PR disaster, right? So I will make sure if I do haram, 100 things haram, I make sure I don't do anything haram in front of public, right? But how do I self-monitor myself in private? That is a question. And that is a lot of things we don't do because of the fear of public. Now there's fear of public, there's fear of cameras too, right? Sometimes people are not watching, but there's a camera on any light that you are stopping, right? So, I don't want to pay $325. I don't know how much it is right now. But whatever amount it is, right? Sometimes you are self-regulated, or not self-regulated, you are regulated by those cameras, right? But how to regulate yourself when you don't have any camera? How to regulate yourself when nobody is watching you? How to regulate yourself when nobody is monitoring you? That is the question. If that regulation comes within us, if that restraint comes within us, that is going to be the ultimate victory. And 3 steps that I would want to remind myself, and I would remind you all, inshallah, if we can practice those 3 things, that's going to give us the self-constraint and the self-monitoring that we can do, inshallah. The first step is what? The first step is that we are not created alone. We think we are alone, but none of us sitting here is alone. Now we know Allah and all those creations, but even the bodily parts that Allah has given, even these walls that you see, the screen that you see, the camera that you see, the clock that you see, the member that you see, they all are going to be the witness for you or against you. That's why you have the famous hadith that says, you try to read salah at different places. Sometimes you read salah here at Basumin, sometimes at Ghadir Mosque, sometimes at different other mosques, right? You go and make sure that you pray at different places, right? You pray there, you pray there, you pray to maximum. I'm at this airport, I make sure I pray here. I'm at this airport, I make sure I pray here, right? Because all of those things and all of those zameen and all of those places where you are praying, they are going to be your witness on the Day of Judgment. The more the witnesses are, the easier the hisab becomes, isn't it, right? So all the places you are praying, right? Sometimes I pray here on the rightest side or the leftist side, sometimes here on this far side, right? I want this part of the zameen, this part of the ground to give the witness to. I want this part of the mosque to give witness to, right? So we believe all the creation of Allah Almighty in itself are the trust of Allah Almighty, are the amanate from Allah Almighty. And that's why you have this beautiful ayah in the Quran. And God knows how difficult this ayah would be for the people. Sometimes, like people are sinning using their hands. People are sinning using their ears. People are sinning using their eyes. People are sinning this zaban that we have. So many sins that we are committing, right? But imagine all of these are trust of Allah Almighty. All of these are the amanah thing. And the same thing that I'm using, they're going to be a witness against me on the Day of Judgment. How difficult would that moment would be. And Allah has mentioned it in a very beautiful way. Now, beautiful way, like in terms of balagha. It's a difficult ayah. وَقَالُوا لِجُلُودِهِمْ لِمَا شَهَدْتُمْ عَلَيْنَا. And they're going to say on the Day of Judgment, these people that have committed sins, the people that were transgressors, the people that did not believe in Allah, the people that did all kinds of misdeeds and negative actions that they were doing. But when they're going to meet their own body parts, they will be with the body parts. But this body part cannot speak right now. This body part cannot speak right now. This body parts cannot speak right now. But on Day of Judgment, every body part would be giving their own witness in their way. And at that moment, the insan and the human being will turn his attention towards the body part. وَقَالُوا لِجُلُودِهِمْ لِمَا شَهَدْتُمْ عَلَيْنَا. They're going to say to their skins on the Day of Judgment, their body parts on the Day of Judgment, why are you testifying against us? Why are you a witness against me? What is the problem? You were my body parts. I used to trust you so much. Today you are witnessing against me. And they were going to reply, قَالُوا أَنْتَقَنَا اللَّهُ الَّذِي أَنْتَقَ كُلَّ شَيْءٍ وَهُوَ خَلَقَكُمْ أَوَّلَ مَرَّةٍ وَإِلَيْهِ تُرْجَعُونَ. That it is indeed Allah that has made us speak, and the way He has given His speech to all of the creation creation that He has created, and Allah has created you for the first time, and to whom you all have to return. يُسَبِّحُ لِلَّهِ مَا فِي السَّمَوَاتِ وَمَا فِي الْأَرْضِ الْمَلِكِ الْقُدُّوسِ الْعَزِيزِ الْحَكِيمِ. All the creation of Allah Almighty, be it in the heavens, be it on the earth, all of the creation of Allah Almighty is glorifying Allah Almighty in its own way. It's glorifying Allah Almighty. It's sanctifying Allah Almighty in its own way. Allah has given the speech. Allah has given them the tongue, but you cannot understand. It's not the physical tongue that Allah has given. It's not the physical speech that Allah has given. But indeed, Allah has given them the speech, right? But we cannot fathom it. We cannot understand it. But the same species that we cannot understand right now, there are going to be a witness for us or against us on the Day of Judgment. And then I take you to the first hadith that I mentioned. Do you think that Monday would have a tongue? Tuesday would have a tongue? Wednesday would have a speech, Thursday would have a speech, Friday would have a speech? We don't think these things have any haqiqat. They would not have a speech, but yes, they have a speech. That's why they make the announcement every day when you wake up in the morning, right? So all the creation. So don't think that you're alone in the middle of the night when you're sitting. Don't think you're alone when nobody is watching you, when you're with the family and you become a qasai and you're doing whatever you're doing. Don't think you're alone. All of the creation that Allah has given, all of the creation that is surrounding you, even your body parts, are going to be a witness against you on the Day of Judgment. The second thing that is going to help us monitor ourselves is the two angels Allah has given. Now, two angels literally are on my right cheek, on the left cheek, right? Now, bachpan mein padhaya gaya tha, they're sitting on like right shoulder, left shoulder, right? But the riwayas of Ahlul Bayt would say they're sitting next to your cheek, like very close to, like I'm speaking, like this area, right? Close to my nose, like not literally. Angels do not have a physical creation. They come in a physical demonstration, but they do not have any physical creation. But the proximity is very close proximity. That's why when you're reciting the salam, mustahab to, to turn your eyes a little bit on the right, a little bit on the left. And when the reason was being asked, you go to Ilal al-Sharaif, Sheikh Saduq and other books, when the reason was being asked from the Imams, Imam said, you go towards a little bit on your right, not like this, right? That's not the way you do your salam. You cannot turn yourself from the qibla as you're praying, right? What we mean literally, just a little bit on your right, a little bit on the left. Why? Because you're saying salams to you. The angels are sitting next to you. They are escorting you. They are overlooking you. They are watching and monitoring you, whatever you're doing. كَلَّا بَلْ تُكَذِّبُونَ بِالدِّينِ. You used to deny the Day of Judgment. وَإِنَّ عَلَيْكُمْ لَحَافِظِينَ. And indeed, we have given you two angels, two protectors, two guardians, two attendants that Allah has given. Kiraman katibin. They're very noble. They're very sanctified. Corruption यहाँ नहीं चलेगी कि आपने $10 खिला दिया उन्हें कि आज थोड़ा गुनाह कम लिखने ना मेरे. Kiraman katibin. They're very noble. They're very sanctified, and they're writing continuously. يَعْلَمُونَ مَا تَفْعَلُونَ. You do any action, they know whatever you're doing. The second protection that we can think. Yes, we are not alone, but yes, indeed, Allah has given us two angels too that are completely and continuously monitoring us. And third thing, inshallah, we're going to end our lecture with that. And that is, Allah is watching us. Allah is monitoring us. وَمَا أُبَرِّيُ نَفْسِي إِنَّ النَّفْسَ لَأَمَّارَةٌ بِالسُّوءِ إِلَّا مَا رَحِمَ رَبِّي. This is Yusuf alayhi salatu wassalam saying. Yusuf said what? That I do not acquit myself. I do not acquit my souls from wrongdoing. I do not acquit. This is the definition of the isma too. That isma does not mean that the ma'asum cannot sin. If ma'asum cannot sin, then the isma or the infallibility is something that is forced upon them. Now, forced upon thing is different than somebody not sinning because the knowledge that Allah has given. Two different things, right? Now, the isma, the infallibility of Ahlul Bayt is not forced upon. It's something that is given to them as a gift. It's given to them as a knowledge. It's given to them as a basira. It's given to them as an insight. It's given to them as an understanding through which they know about the realities of the things. The way you would not consume this water is fine, but you would not consume this water if you would know, or even if you have an idea that somebody has poisoned the water. Why? You would not drink it. That looks completely fine to me, right? There is no problem. But you know the reality inside the water. You would not sin. This is the way we define isma. That Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam, they know the realities of the things. Since they know the realities of the things, that's why they do not sin, because of the realities of the world that they're looking at. They know the malakut. They know the inside out of what sinning means. You think when somebody is backbiting, we do not see as if he's eating the flesh of his brother. But imagine Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam, they're literally seeing people that are eating the flesh of their brother, right? Now, how disgusting, how gross it would be, you watching somebody eating the flesh of their brother, right? But when you have the haqiqah in front of you, the confidence is different. وَمَا أُبَرِّئُ نَفْسِي. And this is what Yusuf is saying, that I do not acquit myself from sinning, right? إِنَّ النَّفْسَ لَمَّارَةٌ بِالسُّوءِ. The soul or the base desires that are within the human being, they are continuously directing people towards negative actions. إِلَّا مَا رَحِمَ رَبِّي. But there's only one exception. And that one exception is what? Upon whom my Lord have mercy over. If you have the mercy of Lord with you, you will be protected from the sins. जहाँ रहमत खुदा आ जाए, वहाँ इंसान गुनाहों से बच जाता है. मुतलक रहमत खुदा को नबी खुदा कहा जाता है. तवज्जो है. That's why you see Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam, Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam, Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. They never sinned in their life. Why? Because they were the demonstrators. They were the manifestors of the rahmat of Allah Almighty. And then I remind myself, Allah is watching me, with the beautiful saying of the commander of the faithful, Amir al-Mu'mineen Ali ibn Abi Talib. How does it say? Man tayaqqana anna Allah tabaraka wa ta'ala yarahu. Anyone who has this certitude, anyone who has this confidence, anyone who has this yaqeen, anyone who has this conviction that Allah is monitoring him, Allah is watching over him, وَهُوَ يَعْمَلُ بِمَعَصِيهِ. And in spite of knowing that Allah is watching over him, he commits acts of transgression, he commits acts of sins, or he does something that displeases Allah Almighty. فَقَدْ جَعَلَهُ أَهْوَنَ النَّاظِرِينَ. That indeed he has made Allah Almighty the weakest and the most undermining of the watchers. The weakest and the most undermining of the watchers. Now can you speak it out loud, that Allah is the weakest of the watcher? If you would say it, you will be a kafir. You will be a disbeliever. Yeah, of course, we do not mean when we are doing the sins. We do not want to think like this. But when you're doing it separately, and when you're not doing it in front of public, but you're doing it in isolation. When I'm not doing it because maybe Ghazanfar Bhai was watching me. I did not do it because another brother was watching me. Another sister was watching me. I did not do it. But I did it in front of Allah Almighty when nobody was watching me. What's the logical conclusion that comes to my mind? The logical conclusion was said out loud by the commander of the faithful. Indeed, you have treated Allah Almighty as the most undermining of the watchers, as the most feeble of the watchers, as the weakest of the watchers. सबसे कमज़ोर तरीन देखने वाले को तुमने रब्बे कायनात करार दिया है. And that's why when you reflect upon the hadith, you reflect upon the saints of Ahlul Bayt, you reflect upon the martyrs of Karbala, you reflect upon the prisoners of Karbala. It's one thing to say, yeah, I believe in Allah Almighty. It's another thing to say when you are having the conversation with the most tyrannical regime of the time, with the biggest tyrant of the universe, and when you're having the conversation, and when Yazid asks you, don't you see Allah has killed Hussein? And then Zainab Salamullah alayha replied, Ma ra'aytu illa jamila. I have not seen anything, but I have only seen goodness and goodness and goodness from Allah Almighty. This is how the Qidah of Tawheed was for Zainab Salamullahi alayha. This is how Zainab Salamullahi alayha was. अज़दारों देखें ना, हम लोग की नमाज़ शब तो छोड़ दीजिए, बाकी नमाज़ों की क्या हालतें होती हैं. ज़ैनब वो है जो मुहाफ़िज़ सलात है. अशहदु अन्नका क़द अक़मता अस्सलात व आतैता ज़कात. You say these things, right, for Hussein ibn Ali. But at the same time, you also say these words, Sharikatul Hussein. Who is Sharikatul Hussein? Zainab Salamullahi alayha. As we have gone through the days of passing of Zainab Salamullahi alayha, I would want to remind myself, and I would want to remind you all too, the musibah of Zainab Salamullahi alayha, the difficult times, the very difficult moments that Zainab Salamullahi alayha had to go through. ज़दारों बहुत मुश्किल मराहिल से गुजरे हैं. इमामत का दिफा किया है ज़ैनब सलामुल्लाह अलैहा. कभी आप देखें, आप कभी सोचिएगा, जब अली अकबर जीन से ज़मीन पर आ रहे थे, ज़दारों जब अली अकबर जीन से ज़मीन पर आए हैं ना, तो अपने बाबा को आखिरी सलाम किया है. अब वो पर्ची कैसे लगी होगी, وہ سر پر وار کیسا ہوا ہے۔ عزاداروں جب زین سے زمین پہ شہزادہ آ رہا تھا اس وقت کہتا ہے صلی اللہ علیہ یا ابا عبداللہ، اے میرے بابا میرا آخری سلام قبول کیجئے۔ اب جو زین سے زمین پر آتے ہیں، جو حسین جب بارگاہ علی اکبر میں جاتے ہیں، جب مقتل میں جا رہے ہوتے ہیں تو آپ نے علماء سے سنا ہے آواز لگا کے جا رہے ہوتے ہیں یا علی یا علی یا علی۔ حالت حسین کی یہ ہے، خود سکینہ سلام اللہ علیہا کی روایت ہے، میں نے اپنے بابا کو دیکھا جب علی اکبر نے آواز لگائی، کبھی اٹھتے تھے کبھی نیچے ہو جاتے تھے، کبھی اٹھتے تھے کبھی نیچے ہو جاتے تھے۔ عزاداروں جب لاش علی اکبر پر حسین پہنچے ہیں، اپنے سینے کو سینہ علی اکبر سے ملایا ہے، اپنے رخساروں کو رخسار علی اکبر سے ملایا ہے، اپنے بازوؤں کو علی اکبر کے بازوؤں سے ملایا ہے، اپنے آپ کو گویا اپنے بیٹے پر نیچے گرا دیا۔ عزاداروں اس وقت ایک آہ نکلی تھی، جب آہ نکلتی ہے اور جب علی اکبر کا دم نکلنے والا ہوتا ہے عزاداروں، آپ سب جانتے ہیں عزاداروں دم کیسے نکلا ہے، میں اس کو چھوڑتا ہوں، زینب اس وقت آتی ہیں، خیمے سے باہر آتی ہیں۔ عزاداروں جب علماء سے پوچھا گیا زینب کی تو شخصیت وہ ہے عزاداروں جو محافظ پردہ ہیں، زینب کی شخصیت وہ ہیں عزاداروں جو بغیر اجازت کے حسین کے کبھی بھی خیمے سے باہر نہ آئی۔ یہ کیا مرحلہ ہے کہ زینب جب علی اکبر زین سے زمین پر آتے ہیں، حسین جا رہے ہوتے ہیں، زینب خیمے سے باہر آ جاتی ہیں۔ علماء نے جواب دیا ہے عزاداروں حسین کی حالت ایسی ہو گئی تھی جیسے کوئی حالت احتضار میں چلا گیا ہو، حسین کی حالت ایسی ہو گئی تھی جو قریب شہادت ہو گیا ہو، حسین کی حالت ایسی ہو گئی تھی کہ جیسے نظر کے عالم میں ہو۔ عزاداروں جب اپنے بھائی کی اس حالت کو زینب دیکھتی ہیں تو زور زور سے بین کرتے ہوئے خیمے سے باہر نکل آتی ہیں کہ مبادا میرے بھیا کی توجہ لاش علی اکبر سے کچھ لمحوں کے لیے میری جانب ہو جائے، کیونکہ اگر لاش علی اکبر کو دیکھتے رہے تو عجب نہیں حسین کی جان نکل جائے۔ عزاداروں یہ ایک دفاع حفاظت امامت ہے۔ دوسرا مرحلہ وہ ہوتا ہے 11 محرم کو قافلہ جا رہا ہے، جب جا رہا ہوتا ہے مقتل گاہ سے جب یہ قافلہ نکلتا ہے، عزاداروں عجب حالت ہے، ایک جوان بیٹا ہے جو بیمار ہے اپنے بابا کی لاش کو دیکھتا ہے۔ عزاداروں جب لاش کو دیکھتا ہے ایسی پامال شدہ لاش ہوتی ہے کہ سینے کی ہڈیاں پسلیوں سے جا ملی ہوتی ہیں۔ جب اس غربت کے عالم میں دیکھتے ہیں سید سجاد کی اس حالت کو دیکھتے ہوئے زینب ناکے پر سوار ہوتی ہیں، دونوں ہاتھ بندھے ہوتے ہیں، لیکن بھتیجے کی توجہ ہٹانے کی خاطر زینب اپنے آپ کو ناکے سے گرا دیتی ہیں۔ اے بھیا عباس صرف آپ منہ کے بل نیچے نہ آئے۔ وَسَيَعْلَمُ الَّذِينَ ظَلَمُوا أَيَّ مُنقَلِبٍ يَنقَلِبُونَ۔ پروردگار ہماری اس کلیل کو اپنی بارگاہ میں قبول فرما، میرے مالک ان آنسوؤں کو رمال زہرہ کا حصہ بنا، پروردگار ہم سب کی عاقبت بالخیر فرما۔ صلی اللہ علیہ محمد وآلہ